I'm no longer answering that question. I'm serious. I'm not answering that question anymore. You're just going to have to trust me. You're just going to have to trust me. And somebody's going to ask me again in 2 minutes anyway, so I'm not going to answer them either. My patience for that question is expired. All right. Let's have a chat about some SQL queries. So for the sake of the studio, I am going to use the tables as they were defined in the walkthrough. I know that we kind of deviated from that a little bit. And you could still probably do a pretty good job answering these questions with the tables that we came up with as a group. But just to make things consistent and make sure that we're all on the same page, we're going to use the tables as they were given to us in the walkthrough to answer these questions. There were 8 of them, I want to say, and we'll do as many as we have time for. We got about 25 minutes, so we got to get to the end. All right, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Some of these are easier than others, right? So we'll see how it goes. First one is list all the titles of the movies in the database. And so for a question like this, I'm getting data out, right? And so I know for a fact that I'm going to need at least 2 clauses, which are select and from. I'm going to need those no matter what. And so I'm just going to go ahead and type them out and then figure out what information I need to fill in, right? So I actually like to start with the from clause. I like to think about which tables I'm going to be hitting first and then worry about the other stuff. So nobody ever said you had to write it in order like a book, right? If you want to pick out the easier parts and do those first, then I think that's actually a very good way of approaching problems. So which table are we pulling from? Movies. And then which columns do we want? Title. All right, 1 down. A few more to go. The next one wants us to list all the titles of the movies in the database in descending order of the year that they were released. And so again, we're retrieving information. I know I'm going to need select and from, and now the question is, do you think I'm going to need anything else? I'm going to need an order by for this one, and you can tell just because they're telling us to, it says right in the prompt, order. So that's a big clue that we're going to need an order by there. And so then, all right, let's go back. I still like to start with from, so I'm going to pick movies, list all the titles, so that's probably going to be title. And now I have to deal with this order by, so what do I want to order by? Year. And then you can specify the direction, either ascending or descending. Which one does it do by default? Do you remember? Ascending by default. So this time it's not optional. We have to say descending, right? If we wanted ascending, then we don't actually have to say that, although we can. If we want descending, we do have to say that. So, all right, that one's good. Another one down. Next one's a little different. Now we're dealing with an insertion. So it says insert a new record into the directors table for this French guy who is from France. Okay? And so if I go back up and take a look at directors, you can see I've got 4 columns, director ID, first name, last name, and country. And then the director ID column is auto increment. So what does that mean? That means we don't have to worry about that one. In fact, if I try to put something in that column, it's going to get mad at me. It's like, no, you told me that I had this one. What are you doing? Let me do it. It'll tell you to knock it off. So we just have to worry about the first name, the last name, and the country. And I can look at the data types. Those are all strings. So let's get started. I'm going to insert, and then what comes next? Into, and then the name of the table, which is directors. All right, and now what do we do? Some parentheses. I can put in the first name, which is Jean-Pierre, right? Oh, okay. So the column names? So you can do things this way. That is true. But you don't have to.
Okay, so if we're filling them all in.
Since we're doing them all, that's exactly right. Since we're doing all of the columns, we don't actually need to specify which columns we're going to be filling in. If I only wanted to do some of the columns, then I would need to do this, right? But because we're doing them all, it's not technically required, and so you can take a little shortcut and say, actually, single quotes are more common for SQL, although I think double quotes will work as well. Genet and France.
So we don't have to specify first, last, and country, then we don't have to specify that those are values that are automatically the same.
I believe that is correct. This would be one of those times when I wish I could actually run this and see if it'll work. But I don't think it's going to complain if you put values there, certainly. Yep. I think double quotes will work, although single quotes are more common in a SQL database. Yeah, I would expect to see single quotes more often. Yeah, I mean, we've seen that in Python too, right? So, yeah. We still got 20 minutes. We're good. We're good. We're already 3 queries in. We've got 20 minutes left, so we're good. All right, next query. List the director ID for this guy, right? So this is another retrieval, so I know I'm going to need those 2 clauses, right? Select and from. Do I need any additional clauses in this one? I need a where. I need a where clause. Why do I need a where clause? I'm looking for that guy, right? I'm looking for that specific guy. So I still like to start with from. Which table? It's going to be the directors. Oops. What am I pulling out? What columns? Director ID. Okay. And then the where clause. What am I going to put here? Last name. So last equals Genet. That's probably good enough. Although if you expect that there might be multiple matches there, we may need to be, so I can do an and, first equals Jean-Pierre, and actually that may, it still may not get us the unique one, right? It still might get us multiple people, but with the information we have, this is the best we can do. There is not really much else that we can do besides what we've done here to make that work. Okay? The next one, we've got another insertion now, and so it's saying we're going to insert a new movie for Amelie. It gives us the information, and so it's by this director that we've been talking about, and it gives us a little hint here. It says we're going to assume that the ID we got from the last query is 2, right? So that's a pretty strong hint that we're going to need that piece of information a little bit later, right? So we can refer back to our previous insertion to get us started. So I'll say insert into, now we're inserting into the movies table, right? And because I'm setting all of the columns again, I can use the little shortcut that we did last time. And so I just need to make sure I get the order right. So do I want to do anything with this one? Nope, that's auto increment. So I'm going to move to title, which is Amelie. The next column is the year, which is 2001. The next column is the director ID. So what do I put in there? 2. I don't put that guy's name in there, right? Because director ID is what? In this table? It's an integer, but it's also, we have a name for it. It's a foreign key. It's a foreign key into the director's table. Nope, no quotes. No quotes. All right, we're almost to the ones that you guys want to see, I think. Just a few left here. So our next task is to list all columns for all records of the director's table in ascending alphabetical order of the director's country of origin. So this is another retrieval, so I know I'm going to need a select and a from. What else am I going to need? Order by. So there is ordering involved. I see the word order in there. All right, so I'm going to start with my from clause. That's what I usually like to do. So that's going to be, it says right here, the director's table. The select clause. Asterisk, good. You could type them all out, and that would not be wrong. That would still work. Asterisk is a little easier, a little bit less work that we have to do. And then for the order by, what am I going to do? Country. And you can put the ascending. Is it like that? Probably. It's not required, but you can put it there. And so order by works with text as well as numerical values. It's just going to sort in alphabetical order, right? All right. Now we get to the fun ones. We want to list the country of origin of the director of Amelie. So we already know that it's supposed to be France, right? But we're going to use a query we're going to assume that we don't know the answer to that question. We're going to use a query to answer it for us. Okay? It is still a retrieval, so the same thing applies. I'm still going to need those two columns, or those two clauses, rather. I'm sorry. I'm still going to need select and from. Do I need any other clauses for this one? That's actually not a clause. Join is part of a where. Or I'm sorry, I just gave away the answer. Join is part of a from, but I am going to need a where. I'm going to need a where clause. So let's start with from. I've been starting with from every time. It's going to be a little more difficult this time. It's telling us flat out to use a join, right? And so the first question, when you've determined that you need to use a join, is, which two tables am I joining? Well, we've only got two tables, so that makes it easy for us. The next question is, what columns am I going to use to perform this join? And the answer to that question should almost always be what? The keys, the primary key and the foreign key. You can perform a join on any two columns as long as the data types match, right? But 99% of the time, you're going to be joining based on the primary key, foreign key relationship that exists between tables. So unless you have a very, 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 very good reason not to do that, you should just take a look at the primary key, foreign key relationships and use that as part of your join. So how do I say that? What do I need to start typing in my from to perform this join? Directors, okay. Oops, directors. What's next? Okay, you can actually even leave off the word inner. Yeah, it's not required, but it's not hurting anything either if you put it in there. Join movies. All right, what's next? On. The word on, and then what? Directors. Directors.director ID equals movies.director ID. And then what? We're good. Well, we'll get to that. But as far as the join goes, we're good. We did it. That's a join. That's a join right there between the primary key and the foreign key. That's what a join should look like. So we can talk about the where next if you want to. What should the where be? Where title equals Amelie. That's the movie that I care about, right? And so then the last thing we have is the select. So what should go in my select clause? Country. That's it. That'll do it. There are other ways that you could have written this query that would still work. This is one possible solution. There are other solutions that would work, but this is a pretty straightforward way of approaching this problem. Now, I have a couple questions for you. I said from directors join movies. Could I have said from movies join directors? Could I have said it that way? Yeah? No?
It would be harder because you might,
You can. You can do it either way. It doesn't matter. For an inner join, it does not matter. For an inner join, I can say this in either order, from directors join movies or from movies join directors, and it will get me to the exact same place. For an outer join, that's not true. For an outer join, that order does matter. What about this part? Could I have switched the order of directors.director ID and movies.director ID? Yeah, absolutely. I could switch the order of that as well. So there's nothing requiring me to specify the tables or the columns in a particular order. As long as they exist and the relationship makes sense, that's all we need. Yeah. Yeah, good question. Yeah, good question. So could I swap just these two and then leave this the same? What do we think? Does it matter? Doesn't matter. The answer is yeah, absolutely. You could. I could swap just the names of the tables and leave this the same, and it would still be okay. It would still be all right. So SQL is pretty flexible in that regard. It's not going to make that much of a difference when you're writing these queries out, the order that you specify those tables. Again, that's true for inner joins. Outer joins are a little different, right? So outer joins do require a little bit more thought in that regard. But for inner joins, it's totally fine. It's totally okay. All right. All right. Last one. List all of the movies in the database along with each movie's director ordered by the director's last name in ascending order. So I want to know the title of every movie and then the first and last name of the director for every movie, right? It says you'll want to use a join. So if it didn't tell us that, right? If it didn't tell us that we wanted to use a join, how would we know that I need to use a join to solve this problem? Information from more than one table. That's it. That's the definition of a join, right? That's what a join, that's the problem that a join is trying to solve for us. I've got data from more than one table, got to use a join. That's how it works. So the nice thing about this particular exercise is there's really only one join that we can even do. And so this code that we wrote for the join in the last problem, that's actually going to work for us on this problem as well. So if you figured it out for the last one, this from clause still works pretty well. But we've got some other stuff to talk about, like what should I put in the select clause? It even tells you, right? Title, first and last. Okay. What other clauses am I going to need to finish this up? Order by. I want to order by the director's last name. So I'll say order by last, ascending. Oh, in ascending order, so I don't even need to put that on there. So we're good. That's it. Right. Yeah, what's up?
So we're pulling title from movies.
Yep.
And we're pulling first and last from director.
Correct.
So you've got title first and then first last, and then you've got directors, and then you've got movies.
Yep.
You don't have to try to balance.
Nope.
Because, okay.
Nope. The ordering that these show up does not have anything to do with the order that the tables show up in the from clause. Nope, not at all.
It just makes more sense.
SQL will figure it out. Yeah. And so, you know, I saw some people doing this where they would put the name of the title up front, like this, in front of each column. This will also work if I can spell properly. Like I can do this. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way. If you want to have it clearly labeled which column comes from which table. It's not required though. If I just put the column name down, it'll figure it out. It'll figure out which one it's coming from. Yeah. Yeah, so if we have the same column in multiple tables, which can happen, that's actually true of our case here, right? Then in that case, we are required to put the table name out front to make sure that it's not ambiguous which one we're talking about. Yeah. But if that's not the case, then we don't have to worry about it.
I wish I could see, like, you know, in code names where you could like see the. I wish I could see.
Yeah, the problem with SQL queries and thinking about them that way is that they actually do not execute from top to bottom, left to right? They do not. In fact, the order that these clauses execute in may actually change from query to query. So in one query, I might do the where clause first, and in another query, I might do the joins first. It really kind of depends on a lot of factors, how these actually get executed. So that makes it very complicated to reason about how, to run through these step by step. When you think about it, right, this feels a lot different from the code we've been writing. The code that we've been writing in Python is a list of instructions, a step-by-step instructions. Do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. That's not what this is. This is defining the boundaries of a piece of information that we want, right? I've got a database, which you can think of as a pool of data, and I use a query to specify, all right, of that giant pool of data, this is the chunk that I want, right? It's not a series of step-by-step instructions. I'm defining the boundaries of the data that I want to see. And it'll figure out the fastest way to get to that result. It's going to try and figure out the fastest way to do that. Yeah.
So somebody wrote the code for that already?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I teach a class on that very thing. I'm teaching a class on that very thing right now on campus. That's what I do over on campus. So, but yeah. Any other questions about this stuff before we wrap up for the evening? What's up?
Is SQL, is it open source?
It's an open standard. MySQL is open source. Yeah. So, yeah. All right, everybody. We're going to talk more about SQL on Thursday, so I will see you then. Have a great week.